a spirit of the times, a broad agreement on certain basic notions. It was assumed that through reason and science, people could understand nature and harmonize with its laws, thus progressing towards happiness and perfection. But first they had to know about nature and the nature of nature, what nature is like. And this natural science was based on the discoveries of the 17th century, which had a far greater effect on the thought of the 18th century than on its own time. The 17th century was the great age of scientific discovery. There were the new instruments that made discovery possible, the telescope, perfected by Galileo, who also invented the thermometer and greatly improved the mechanical clock, while a pupil of Galileo's, Torricelli, invented the barometer. All of these instruments permitted more exact and more extensive observations. Then there were specific discoveries. William Harvey discovered the circulation of the blood through heart and lungs. Anton Leeuwenhoek developed lenses powerful enough to see bacteria and spermatozoa. Robert Boyle worked on the behavior of gases at different temperatures and under different pressures and became the father of modern chemistry. Tremendous advances were made in mathematics by Isaac Newton and René Descartes, advances in logarithms, differential calculus, integral calculus, all laying the groundwork of higher mathematics. And the mysteries of electricity and magnetism were being revealed by William Gilbert and Benjamin Franklin, by way of Italians like Alessandro Volta and Luigi Galvani. But the greatest figure in early modern science was Isaac Newton, who lived from 1643 to 1727. Newton laid the groundwork of modern physics by working out the mechanical laws of motion, and especially the law of gravity, the speed with which bodies descend to Earth. And the result of this accumulation of discoveries was a radical change in the outlook of educated people. When the 17th century opened, serious scientists might still believe in witches. When the 17th century closed, this would have been impossible because no scientist believed in the supernatural forces that witches were supposed to dabble in. In Shakespeare's time, people believed that comets were portents. After Newton, they knew that Newton and Halley had calculated the movement of certain comets, and that stars obeyed the laws of gravity just as planets did. So now human imagination accepted scientific law and began to reject magic and sorcery. As this book suggests, the mysteries of nature were to be unraveled by humans. In 1600, men had lived in the Middle Ages. By 1700, the mental outlook of educated people was modern. There weren't many educated people in 1700, but their number was growing along with schools and books and propaganda and debate. And as the news of scientific discoveries spread on the continent, it also affected their religious belief. You mustn't think that 17th century scientists wanted to shake anybody's religious belief. Newton himself was profoundly religious and a bit of an alchemist as well. But his discoveries took on a life of their own. After Newton, educated people knew that the solar system was kept going by its own momentum and its own laws. the Newtonian solar system rotated like clockwork according to the law of gravity. Maybe God had set the mechanism to work. Maybe God had decreed the law of gravity. But once it started, he wasn't needed anymore. And so to some, God became a figurehead, a kind of constitutional monarch. A creator indeed, but with no right to intervene in a universe that worked automatically according to the laws of physics and mechanics. You could still believe that the starry heavens proclaimed the glory of God. But the way the starry heavens worked was revealed by astronomical calculations. By the 18th century, the great discoveries of the 17th were digested and their implications drawn. Important medical advances were being made in fighting scurvy and especially smallpox. In 1783, two Frenchmen, the brothers Montgolfier, demonstrated their discovery that heated gas inside a fabric bag would cause it to rise. The Montgolfiers went to Versailles, and while the king watched, they sent up a large balloon carrying a sheep, a rooster, and a duck. A couple of months later, the first manned flight sailed over Paris, and by 1785, an American and a Frenchman had flown across the English Channel. The possibilities of science were obviously infinite. No wonder that everybody who was anybody dabbled in it. Voltaire studied mathematics and brought Newton to the general public. Another encyclopedist, d'Alembert, produced vulgarizations of science and philosophy for fashionable ladies. Diderot did chemical and anatomical experiments. And biology fascinated everybody. This is a sketch of Galvani's experiments with frog legs and electricity. So now we're in a world of science, of mechanics, a material world which it's important to exploit, to develop, in order to make people better and better off, in order to make them happy, which is itself a novel notion.